Kia ora and welcome to this episode of the Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of Aotearoa, New Zealand. My returning special guest is my brother Ant.
Hello.
And today we're discussing the last two episodes of Rational Creatures, a web series based on persuasion. Episodes 17 and 18 are both around the same party. The first one's kind of from Anna's perspective, and the second is from Fred's. In episode 17, Ben and Lewis are very cute. Anna and Fred are very awkward. Marisol and Charlie are also very cute. Ben convinces Anna to sing her song for Fred, which is called None But You. But Fred writes a letter and leaves because he's got to get to the airport. There are two creators in this party scene, and I think different creators wrote the song this time instead of Benjamin, who I believe wrote all the other original music for the show. Episode 18 is the party from Fred's perspective. We get to see him prior to the party, packing and stressing about how he's going to talk to Anna. Marisol comes up and starts rambling at him, and then they're talking about the house, and Fred says to Lois that it looks like he and Ben are happy. Which is great, because when you think about this is a fucking awkward situation. Sophie, Fred's sister, is going, what time is it? Don't you have to go soon? When are you going to talk to her? But then Anna starts singing, and he writes a letter, and he quotes some of the stuff from Persuasion directly, which is kind of cool. They pierce my soul in half agony, half hope. He also quotes a bit of her song. And then he leaves. Then Anna runs after him, then catches him, and they kiss. Then it goes back to the party and everybody's dancing around. Fred and Anna have a talk about their relationship, basically. It turns out that the book that I thought was supposed to be about travel was about her. And then everybody's dancing and it's all great and fun. And they dance through the credits. And then it ends with the title card, which I thought was quite cool, particularly with the way they placed the music through it.
The whole scenario is extremely awkward. Like this little group of friends that are all incestuous and are all over each other. And they're also related. So there's family and everything's intertwined and it's really bizarre. As everybody knows by now, like I don't know the story of Persuasion. I don't know it, so I'm watching this completely blind. And as a, filmmaker. But that scenario of relationships is so bizarre, and how they don't avoid each other, although they say, I'm trying to avoid this person and this person, but they never do. They always go to the same parties. They go to the same dinners. And like I've mentioned before, like the world seems so small. Because that dude, Elliot, wasn't there, right?
No, he was not at the party.
Who was from the other ones. But I just think it could have helped the filmmaking, the web series making. Like for something like that, especially in the finale, that they had a few more people that just weren't the main characters of the story.
And I think that's why they had two of the creators in this episode as sort of background actors.
Right. For a lot of it, like if there were just more people involved, all those relationships are so entwined and it's so strange. It just feels weird to me.
Because it feels like a huge cast to me to try and keep track of who everybody is. Like Henrietta, who has barely any lines, but is siblings with Charlie and Lois. So you see her a couple of times.
She showed up and honestly, like I was watching it and I went, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten.
That's part of the risk if you have a lot of characters. It's hard for people to remember who everyone is. They weren't originally going to have that character in, but in one of the talks I did with the cast and creators, they said she was so great, we had to put her in. And so they wrote her into the script, which I think is really great.
Oh, that's cool.
And it does give more of a family feeling because you've got those siblings.
And I know they'd be restricted around location and how they're going to cheat the place, but also like their world never expands beyond what it seems like is 2 apartments. You never really go outside. There's that scene where Anna loses the dog and then Fred shows up, and then when they meet in episode 18, that's in the same place, but it's understandable, in the same area because they live in that area. But their world never gets expanded. So as a viewer, like you just feel, like I felt anyway, throughout the whole thing, that it's just very, I don't know, their world is super tight. But that I've talked about that before, as far as like how the shots are composed and what they choose to do, how many characters they try to cram into one shot instead of trying to make it a little bit wider and let the scenes build a little bit.
It's the thing we keep coming back to. It's the limitations that they were working with in, what space they had, what budget they had, and who they had. It does make a difference. You make really different choices than you'd perhaps choose to. And a lot of web series, as I said previously, went for a static camera and more vlog style format because then you didn't have to have so much investment. Sometimes they'd put the camera in different rooms, but it would still be static, and you could just record a bunch of things in one place without having to do a lot of different setup and stuff. Because films, the amount of money and planning and everything that goes into them, because how long does it take to do a film?
Well, it depends the size of it and the style of it, but generally the stuff that I work on, you have producers and directors, and, well, if the director's the writer, but the script can be anywhere between, someone's just come up with it and 2 months ago, and they have a producer that has money and they can start moving into pre-production. But a lot of stuff that I've worked on that's been the script has been a script for 6 years. As far as the physical production of it goes, once you go into pre-production, again, depending on your budget, it's all dependent on how big it is and how much money you have. But bigger ones that I work on, the director and the first AD and producers and production designer, those sorts of people who are integral to making everything sort of happen, be generally employed in pre-production for anywhere from 10 weeks to a year.
Just for pre-production?
Yeah.
Wow.
Your set team, your camera operators, your other ADs, your grips, your lighting, all the minions, as it were, that breaking down costumes and setting up makeup trucks and transport and all that sort of stuff. All of that can happen within 2 to 6 weeks. You can get everything all going, but it's all of the brain's trust of trying to figure it all out. It's just as long as the producers can afford to make that go for, depending on the difficulties of the job and what the job is. And then when you go into shooting, again, it's really a budget thing. It's how long you have. The producers will generally say to the AD, you have this long to make it. Say you've got 4 weeks to make this film, or 8 weeks to make this film, or 8 months to make this film. And then you just sit down with your director and you go through with your director and DOP and your production designer and any other HODs that you have that are really integral to the role. The one that I'm about to go on to is extremely stunt heavy. There's a lot of stunt elements and people hanging from places for the majority of the film. I won't go into it because I can't. But you just figure out who is integral to making those decisions and how you're going to time the whole thing out. And then it's always dependent on what the producers give you as an AD anyway for how long you have. And then you just have to work with everybody and try and magically make that puzzle work in the time that you have been given.
And then post-filming, there's post-production?
Yeah, there's always post. So again, it's completely how much budget people have. And it depends on what post house you have, what the release date of whatever you're doing has. If it's a TV show, you might be under a really strict timeline to get everything going. The editor always does an assembly of what they get to show the director. And any directors that are listening will know that the first assembly that your editor does, you usually will go, oh shit, oh my God, this is terrible, what have I done? And I don't know, because I don't know how these guys did it.
They filmed in a couple of days.
Yeah, right.
They did a lot of script work together, and then I think they had a day or two to figure out their filming schedule, and then they filmed over a couple of days. In two separate sets, because they had a season 1 and a season 2, but the time was really compressed.
Yeah. Well, those would have been some big days for them to push through and get it all done. And I mean, you just look at simple things that people who watch this won't kind of understand. That character Fred, all those flashbacks that dude had to shave. So logistically, you have to think about timelines and flashbacks and how those things are going to work, and then in the order of how you shoot them. So if you've only got 2 days to shoot something like this, then understand then why they just went, okay, put the camera there and we're just going to treat this like a play. And you just say the dialogue for this scene and we're all just going to be crammed around this couch. And I know we don't all really fit here, but we've only got 10 minutes to get this episode and we have to go. And again, that's a budget thing and a time constraint thing. And that's filmmaking, really.
Because when it comes to TV, when they have weekly episodes, 20 or 40 minutes, it takes them a whole week to do that.
Dependent on the TV show, but for most of them, if it's like a 40-minute TV show, again, it's a thing that you get from the producers, but the general rule is you get about 10 days or 12 days to shoot an episode. But again, dependent on how much money you have, what the vision of it all is. Because ultimately, when you get the script, you get the idea, and you get a producer or a producer team and a director in there. And sure, it is the producer's say in the end, as far as like, yes, we're going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. But it's the director's vision that you're trying to get across. I know so many TV shows, and I've worked on so many TV shows, that you get given a certain amount of days to shoot. And it's just completely unrealistic. You're never going to get what the director wants. You're never going to be able to pull off certain sequences in the way that you really want them to. And I'm sure that these guys making this web series as well felt that way when they look back at it and they've gone, oh man, I wish we could have had more time in this set, and that scene was really important and we didn't give it the time that it deserved. Or the dialogue, looking back at that scene didn't really come off properly because, again, we only had 45 minutes to shoot that scene. And that's just the realities of filmmaking, and especially if these guys, were working on a really small budget of trying to get through, which is great. Like, good on them for doing it, because it's scary going in and doing something like this, especially with the time constraint that you have. And I don't know, because I don't know any of I haven't looked at the people behind it, but, to have the balls to go in and make something and just grab the team around you and go, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be fucking awesome, but we've only got this much time to do it. And so catering is just going to be cereal and sandwiches and, and cups of tea, and sorry, there's no coffee, but, we'll just make it work. And it's awesome that people do that. To have the balls to go out and do something like this in the amount of time that they had, with the constraints that they had. But it's like also being a musician for years and years and years. Before I got into the film industry, I feel it's kind of that same thing of like, if you go and make something and you don't look back on it, especially if it's like one of the first things that you do. I don't know if this is the first thing that they've done, this producer-director team. I do think that if it's one of the first things you do and it's something that you were just passionate about and you really want to put together, if you look back at it 5 years from when you've finished making it and you're not at least a little bit cringy about it, then I don't think, if you're still really proud of it and gone, man, I was so amazing, then I don't think you put your real self into it. It's a normal human trait that we have to...
It's growth.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, this is something that they talk about in writing as well. Like, your first book is probably going to be crap. And one of the marketing things that a lot of people suggest is make your first book free so people will read it. And you're like, well, it's not that great a book anyway. People will read it and then maybe they'll like my other stuff. Yeah. And yeah, like I look back at earlier stuff that I've written and it's not great. And perhaps the stuff I'm currently publishing isn't that great. But, it's improving.
Don't say that about yourself.
My ex-mother-in-law read the start of my latest book and she's like, well, I didn't read all of it, but it is much better than the last one I read. I'm like, good.
Oh, that's good.
Improvement, that's the thing you aim for.
Yeah, totally. These 2 episodes that we're looking at, I understand, were under, those time constraints of just 2 days to shoot the entire series, which is a lot of content to shoot in 2 days. There would have been those snap decisions about, sure, they, like you say, they did a lot of planning and they did a lot of writing and things like that. But when it comes down to it, like, there is nothing that can prepare you for a 2-day shoot of something that is this long. Like, 18 episodes. Well,
all split into.
We should, but it's really like, it's 18 scenes, basically. Like, each episode is kind of just, well, maybe 1 or 2 scenes.
Towards the second series, there's a bunch of different scenes going on in these different locations because they go hiking and they're in 2 different houses and then they're back in Anna's father's house.
See, but they don't go hiking.
Oh no, they're just like in the cabin.
They just go into another house, which again brings me back to, and like the guys that have made this, I'm sure they're going to listen to it, and I'm not trying to be an asshole or anything, but I'm just saying it brings me back to that point of like, expanding that world. But again, like with the time constraint, I completely understand.
Because originally they wanted to film like a camping trip, but with the difficulties with location and time and all of that sort of thing.
Just from a logistics point of view, that's a whole day on its own, you know.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to be able to shoot in... do you know what the city was that they shot in?
Chicago.
Right. So there's no way you're going to shoot a whole bunch of stuff inside of apartments and houses and then pack up all that shit and be able to get a camping scene even in a day with travel and everything. So
I'm just so impressed with the logistics of this because they all live in different cities, the creators. Most of the actors, not all of the actors, live in Chicago. So they had to all come to Chicago, some people from different countries, to film, and not all of the creators were able to be there at the entire time of the filming time. It was just like listening to it, I'm like, how did you do this? Because they used to have Zoom meetings to look at the script together, and they had to negotiate, I think, 4 different time zones.
Right.
Because Hazel was in the UK, someone was in Canada, and the others were in different parts of the States. They have all worked on this type of, not exactly like this, but literary web series before, and that's how they met from helping out on each other's web series. So I think they've like built up the skills, but they're not professionals, and they don't get paid for their work. The actors get paid,
sure,
which is really good because it's not always the case with these sort of projects.
Yeah, it's pretty much normal when you're making something this tight that you're kind of doing it for the love of being creative and wanting to put something out there, which is cool. It was interesting the party sequence, because I've just been, that TV show The Witcher. Have you seen The Witcher?
I have not.
Okay, so I won't spoil anything in The Witcher, but there's an episode in the season 3 which is out at the moment, and it's this big party episode, and it's shot from different perspectives the whole time, and it just loops the party over and over and over and over and over and over. And I thought it might have been cool for these guys. I know, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and I'm an outsider, so I can say whatever I like, and I'm not involved in the creative process. So, again, excuse me if I sound like an asshole, but it could have been quite cool if they had shot that whole 17 and 18 as one episode and just kind of jumped around a little bit to make it maybe a little bit more all-inclusive.
Do you mean like the first episode of the second season of The Good Place, where you get to see everything from one person's perspective, then the next and the next, and as you go through each person's perspective, it builds onto the storyline a little bit longer?
Yeah. And I mean, because it was the last one as well, because it really was the last. And I know it's like about Anna and Fred, but the thing for me is that over this entire series, the writers and the creators of this whole thing have put a lot of stock into the other characters. Sure, they're all supporting cast in a way, but like Lewis and Ben's relationship, they made to be really, really important. And Anna's sister, sorry, I forget her name.
Marisol.
Right, so their relationship, her and her partner, they made, to be really, really important. And I just thought that if you're going to try and wrap the whole thing up, and again, it's a time constraint thing, and I understand, but I'm just saying, like, if you had the opportunity to build that party as like one episode from multiple perspectives, then it might have been cool to, and again, I don't know Persuasion, so, don't hate me, but I'm just saying, yeah, to build across all of those characters would have been quite cool, to make it a longer episode and to make it from multiple points of view, not just Fred and Anna. So you got to wrap up all of those stories.
Because you get like a line from each of those characters that goes, oh, look, they're happy now. But you don't really get that close-up with them.
Totally. And it does seem in those episodes that the writers have gone, we need to button up that bit and we need to button up that bit, So like you said, you get a line from them. Fred says to Lewis about, your guys' relationship is really good, or you guys are good together, or whatever the hell he says. But then it's like, cool, so audience, you should be satisfied that that's all buttoned up and put away. Yeah, it could have been a cool idea to delve more into that party. If you're going to do it from multiple perspectives, like just Fred and Anna, it could have been cooler to shoot it from all of those relationship perspectives that you built throughout the series. I mean, I know that Fred and Anna are the main characters in the whole thing, and I get that. But also, like I said, you've put a lot of stock into these other characters, into these other relationships, and they all seem to, in this last episode, just be like, we don't really care about you. So a lot of the other guys are just kind of left with, not that I have questions about what happens in their relationships or what went on or anything, but just could have been a cool idea to try and wrap everything up all in one go.
What I realised rewatching this series is I had thought the two parties, because there's this one and there's the earlier one where Ben does his little concert. In my head, they happened at the same time. Like, it was one party. And when I was watching, I was like, but when does Fred do his letter during Ben's concert? But of course, it doesn't happen till this point.
Yeah, they look similar. I mean, it's the same similar backdrop behind Ben, which I thought they could have. I know they probably reused it or.
Because it'll be like it's in the same house.
Yeah. Oh, was it in the same house?
I assume.
It did all kind of blend a wee bit.
They do the trope of chasing someone to the airport, but thankfully she doesn't have to chase him all the way to the airport. She manages to catch him. But it's obvious that from the way she's reacting, she thinks he's going off overseas again and not coming back. Because he hasn't said to her, which he said to somebody else, I'm going to New York for a book thing. I'm just flying across the country and I will be back.
Yeah, that was weird. And also, like, the section where Fred is standing there, like, it does the shot, right, where it shows that plane, and then it comes down through the trees, and then it's a shot on Fred against, this weird, creamy, yellow-coloured wall.
I thought it was the side of a house.
Well, yeah, it is the side of a house, but I don't get why they did it. I don't know why he's not moving. I don't know why he's just static. And again, I know it's like they probably went, shit, we need a shot of him looking at his phone and waiting for her to text or something. But it just seemed crazy.
Yeah, because I assumed he was like waiting for an Uber, but then when she comes and finds him, he's walking.
Yes, which...
Yeah.
So that whole part of it didn't make sense to me. I thought that if you did a shot of him walking, because he's just left the apartment, and then he's standing there and waiting for a cab or whatever he's waiting for, and then yeah, sure, like that would make sense. Or even going to get into a cab, because he's obviously, like, he needed to leave. He was under time constraints. So where is he going? Why is he in a rush if there's no Uber to pick him up or no cab to pick him up, or he's not getting into a car? Just the urgency of the last part of it didn't make sense to me.
The other thing that we were talking about was that it wasn't entirely clear what the party was about. I eventually got on like the second or third watch that it was Anna's got into grad school, but I don't think anyone clearly said that's what's happening, and you had assumed it was a birthday party.
Well, it's just because I didn't read the balloons, yeah.
Well, we didn't ever see the balloons in full. You could just see like bits of them.
Like, it's quite amazing that they did all that in 2 days. Hats off to them. That's some good shit. But just those little things, like, like those balloons and like cutaways to certain things could have been achieved a little bit better in certain scenes. But again, that comes down to a scheduling thing where, because I don't know if they had an AD. I don't think they had an AD. I think it was just run as a team and they just went, cool, let's do this other thing.
They all did lots of different roles.
Totally, which makes it hard, but it could have helped them a little bit when they're in that party scene or in some other scene, because it's all shot. There's still costume changes, there's things that has to happen, redress sets, you have to do all sorts of shit. So in those downtimes of doing those things, could have been some cool little cutaways of, like, we just talked about the balloons, the congratulations on the balloons, and the scenes.
Yeah, just a really clear shot of congratulations.
Well,
really nice.
Yeah, not to like force feed it and push it down people's throats or anything, but
I might need that.
Yeah, you
might need that.
But it just helps with telling the story if you have little cutaways of other things in there as well. And it just makes it more interesting, gives you a place to go in the cut instead of having to hold. There are some scenes in this where people are sitting on a couch or they're standing in a kitchen, and you can tell that the camera operator is crammed up against a wall and they try to just pile 6 people in front of the camera. Again, time constraints and shots and stuff, sure. But yeah, it just seemed a little bit forced at times, but that's all right.
I liked that they did callbacks to previous episodes. The shots from the breakup and shots from them talking when they're at the cabin and things like that to help fill in some of the things that they were thinking about.
Yeah.
I also really liked the credits, having them dancing through the credits and then beautifully ending with the title card. In a previous episode, we were talking about the credits and that not all web series tend to do a full credit reel. And since then, I've discovered that it's to do with the YouTube algorithm. If a video isn't watched all the way through, YouTube doesn't give it as much prominence. So for the glorious algorithm, people were not putting in credits because they knew that viewers wouldn't necessarily watch them and then their video would not get this same amount of notice in the algorithm.
Yeah, because it would, as I was watching them, it would hit the credit and I would just go skip.
Yeah.
And I would skip it and go to the next one immediately. And I wouldn't sit there and watch the credits every single time.
See, but I really like credits in movies when they have little things going on. Some bloopers, or you have another little funny scene at the end, or pictures of things. I enjoy that, but it does mean a lot more work for the creators.
If you were trying to trick the algorithm, that would be the only way to do it, would be in the first episode, establish that you've got the credits and then you have a small scene after the credits and then the episode ends.
Oh, I like those too, yeah.
Because that way, you just have a little cutscene and then people will know that, shit, I've got to wait until the end of the credits so I can see that last little piece of, it'd just be one shot or two shots or whatever.
One of the things that I talked to, it was Letitia I was talking to about it. She played Charlie, Marisol's wife, was the importance of having biracial characters in this series. And I wasn't sure if biracial was a word that we used in New Zealand.
I don't think we really use that as a thing. But for her, what was the importance of having that type of representation in here?
Because she's biracial and all the characters that played her siblings were also biracial. And then this is opening opportunities for them and also being able for other biracial people to see representation of themselves on screen and go, oh, this is something that I could do.
Sure. I think that's good. Like, I understand, I don't think it's a thing that needs to be done for the sake of it needing to be done. If it's the right person for the role of what you're trying to do, then sure, that should be the person that you get. But there's a thing at the moment in film, kind of worldwide, really, where they're always saying, oh, we need more diversity. We need, representation of this race and all this sort of stuff, which I think is, in some places, it is just people trying to do it for the sake of trying to do it. And I'm not saying that these guys are. But it's just a point that I think is a little bit over the top in places, like for instance, you don't want to put a Tongan person in a film just because you feel like there needs to be a Tongan face in the film, like any Polynesian face. You don't need to have that in an American film because you feel like Polynesia needs to be represented in everything. And it's not something that I feel needs to be there just because it needs to be there. I think the stories of those people, and like, what did she say? Biracial. Is that her word? People should be able to have their own culture and be able to tell their own stories and be allowed to tell their own stories. Whether they're black, white, biracial, Asian, whatever it is, I don't think it matters. But when it's like saying that it was important to have those people in there because other people that are like them need to see that they can be represented on screen. Sure, it's a good thing, but it's not something that, especially in the world where I come from, which TV shows are a lot bigger and, movies are huge, where, the things that I work on. But a lot of that is just run by, white America, and it's not the thing that I think matters. I think it's more those races, like Polynesian races or African American or whoever it is, they should be allowed to tell their own stories. They should be able to have who they want in there. And they should be able to run their own shows. You shouldn't always need like a white showrunner from a studio to come in and tell you how to tell your story and tell you how the story should be run because it's not going to make sense to people that watch. Like, who gives a shit? It's your story and it's about your culture. So you should be able to have control over it and represent yourself and your culture in the way that you want to.
See, I like colourblind casting, where they're going for who is the best person for this role, regardless of race. Like that I find really cool. But if they're going, hey, we need XXX, in some cases it can feel a bit like tokenism.
Yeah, for sure.
Like on South Park, they have a black guy, I remember, I haven't watched that in like 20 years, called Token, because he was the token black guy.
Yeah, South Park is not a great example of
What
that.
are you saying?
But the good thing about South Park, right, is that they go after everyone. They don't leave any culture, religion, company,
Unoffended.
government. They just go after everybody. Colorblind casting sure is good. The only way you a lot of times can't really do that is if it's based on a book with established characters and the interactions with them.
I mean, have you seen Bridgerton?
No.
Have you seen Persuasion? They've got characters of colour, and it's assumed that the characters in the books were white.
I have not seen Bridgerton.
You should.
I don't think I will. It's an interesting topic to talk about just because racism is such a huge problem in the world as a whole. In any country where you think, oh, we don't have racism or we've got it under wraps, you're kidding yourself. Even here in New Zealand, our people who this country really belongs to before the white man came here is our Māori culture, which we're really proud of. For the most part, most people are proud of it. But we've gone through like 4 generations of Māori and Te Reo, which is our language here, like being stamped out because of racism and the fact the Crown ran our country and this is what you do and you can't do this and everything has to be English, And we're finally in a place now where my kids, I've got 2 boys and they're growing up in, one's in daycare and one is in his 4th year, 5th year at primary school, which for the Americans listening is elementary school. That culture is coming back in a huge way, which is great. And it's a thing that should be there. So we're lucky. But yeah, racism is it's always around and it's hard.
We are technically biracial if we're using that term.
Yes.
It is a difficult position to be in because we pass as white.
Yeah.
And that means that you can get people who feel that comfortable being racist in front of you. And I've had situations where I've gone, yeah, but then there are Māori who don't look Māori like me and walked away.
Well, I think for our generation anyway, it's difficult because we're that bridging that gap in generations where people still are openly racist at times. But it's the best thing you can do as a human being who has any sort of conscience and feel like they're a loving person. You just can't let that shit slide.
If you allow someone to say casually racist things, casually homophobic things in front of you, they think it's okay if you call them out. And one of the great lines is, what do you mean by that? It's not any way accusatory. Or you ask them to repeat themselves, and those things will make them go, oh, what did I just say? And is that an okay thing? And sometimes you go, oh, now I know who you are. And you can step back from that relationship.
That's a nice way of saying it. I'm a little bit more blunt, but...
What do you say?
If it's somebody that I'm working with or it's an extra that I'm... Quite interesting. It's a lot of extras say stuff to... I don't know if they're trying to be shocking or if... I've kicked a few extras off set because they've said racist or sexist things, and I call people out in front of everybody. I'm not ashamed to tell people that they're being racist or sexist or ageist or whatever it is. Discrimination is just stupid. It doesn't make sense to me.
The tagline for this show is fall back in love, and the back is in brackets. Now that you've watched the entire series, do you think that Anna and Fred had fallen out of love and did fall back in love, or do you think that they were in love the whole time?
No, I think they were still in love the whole time. I mean, in the episode, what is it, 15 or 16 or some shit, I can't remember, but where he tells her that he's not going to come back from going overseas, and then she tells him that she's paid her deposit for whatever it is, the university, right? And then he goes, but I still love you, and all this sort of shit. And then essentially break up and go their separate ways. The very first episode where they first encounter each other, they have all these hilarious, and I don't mean it to, I'm not taking the piss out of the actors or anything, but they have these hilarious moments where it's the two of them looking at each other. Like there's been some conversation happen with another character, and then the other characters leave, and there's Fred and Anna standing there. Oh my God, they're in a room, and it's just the two of them, and their eyes are all wide looking, and like you can feel the anguish, and oh. So
actually, if you have the closed captions on during that period, the closed captions say screams internally.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's pretty hilarious. I don't ever feel like they fell out of love. Like it's always, I mean, I didn't know the story of Persuasion, but from the outset of this, you know where it's going to go. You know that they're going to end up back together. It's just extremely obvious that they were never out of love. No.
Oh. A theme that's come up several times in different seasons of the podcast has been chemistry versus compatibility. We talked about it in Mansfield Park, where Edmund, who's very straight-laced, falls for kind of a party girl because they've got chemistry.
Sure.
And in The Courtship, which was a reality TV show where basically they wear Regency gowns, but otherwise it's a dating show.
Well, that sounds awful.
Oh, it was, but also great.
Right.
The main, what do they call her, the heroine? Picked a guy because she had really great chemistry with him, as opposed to someone else who may have been a more compatible choice. And I was wondering what your thoughts were around Fred and Anna, Fred and Lewis. For me, I felt like Fred and Lewis was potentially a chemistry thing as opposed to a compatibility thing. Like Lewis was like, oh my God, he's this amazing travel writer, and they had this chemistry thing. But like Fred and Anna, is it more of a compatibility thing or not?
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, story-wise, yeah, it feels like it's more of a compatibility thing, but you can tell that they had chemistry, otherwise they wouldn't have pulled themselves back together. If you're just compatible with someone and you go and you fuck off and go travel around the world and then you come back, like if you're just compatible, then there's no way you're going to go and search that person out and go to all of these events with that person there.
It's so awkward going to all this stuff with your ex. What are they doing?
Yeah, it was very weird. And the whole Lewis Fred thing, I think that was chemistry, but no, it wasn't chemistry. I don't think it was chemistry, sorry. I think it was infatuation from one side. So Lewis was infatuated with Fred. Fred didn't give a shit, and you could tell from the beginning of that whole relationship. Fred was just like, yeah, okay, this is awkward. This guy really likes me. And then he just went, cool. Well, I'm just going to get in there and give it a go and we'll see what happens. But you could tell Lewis really liked him and Fred didn't care. And it was very, very obvious. The fact that Lewis has a panic attack about, his schooling and shit like that, and Fred just leaves him. Like, that's not a person you want to be with. Fred was a total dick at that stage, and nobody called him out on it.
He was trying to help, he just didn't know what to do.
No, he wasn't trying to help.
You don't think?
No, hell no.
He goes and tries to Google what to do when someone's having a panic attack, but there's no internet.
No, I'm not talking about that.
Oh.
I'm talking about the fallout from after that panic attack.
Oh, the fallout, yeah.
He just fucks off and then he doesn't message Lewis. Lewis is messaging him constantly. And if you're out there and you have mental health issues, which most people really do, you know that if you've had a panic attack or something's happened in your life and you have an anchor or a person that you feel is your anchor at the time, which I feel like Lewis thought Fred was potentially going to be that for him in his world, I thought it was a total dick move that Fred just completely shut him out. And nobody in the whole thing thought that Fred was a bit of a dick for doing that. And they don't portray him to be a dick at all in any way in the writing or in the way that the actor played that character. But I think Fred was a total jackass doing that. Just saying. But I don't think it was chemistry. I think it was just infatuation from Lewis's side of it. I don't think Fred really gave a shit about Lewis at all at any point in the story.
Oh, hot takes.
Why, that's what I think.
No, I like that that's what you think.
Am I not here for my opinion?
You are. I'm glad that Ben and Lewis end up together. Like, that was a beautiful story. And that I think they have the chemistry and the compatibility.
I think Ben can do better. I think Lewis didn't really care about what Ben is, like who he is, and what he was trying to do for Lewis the whole way through. So I think if I was Ben, I would have let it get to that point and then gone, you know what? Nah, I'm out. And then walked away. I think Ben could do better than Lewis. I think Lewis is just out for himself. You know?
Harsh.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh. The show has been selected for several different amateur film festivals and stuff, including the Jane Austen Film Festival for 2023 in Bath, which is really great, and I hope that they continue to get a lot of views from their work, and they've put so much work into this series. It's amazing, and I really look forward to see what the creators are going to do next. This has been our discussion of episodes 17, 18, and some wrap-up commentary on Rational Creatures. I'm Frances Duncan. This has been Ant Davies. There will be links in the notes. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy watching.
I don't know it, as I have told you all. I
Many
do
times.
not know it. My sister is the one who is very much into Jane Austen.